Could the Powerpuff Girls of our childhood, Buttercup, Blossom, and Bubbles, be found a family with Samurai Jack, only separated by generations? AKA, is Powerpuff Girls Samurai Jack's Boruto, with similar art styles and nods to Townsville in Samurai Jack's future timeline? Many fans have speculated that this was the Cartoon Network's cinematic universe, and the two shows are actually connected. While the creators have rebuffed the theory, a new Powerpuff Girls comic brings it all together. Let's dive right into the conspiracy wormhole and see if this one holds up, shall we? Before we get into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
Powerpuff style!
Buttercup, Blossom, and Bubbles. The Powerpuff Girls is a late 90s and early 2000s cartoon that was televised first by Hanna-Barbera and then on Cartoon Network. The show's premise is simple. It is about three Powerpuff Girls, Buttercup, Blossom, and Bubbles, who were created in a lab by Professor Utonium using Chemical X. They lived in the city of Townsville, which is right next to Monster Island, and thus are constantly battling said monsters to protect their home. The series had both American and Japanese inspiration and started a series including an anime. So how is this show connected to Samurai Jack, which is essentially about time traveling and a solo samurai quest? Before we get into that, let us take a moment to refresh ourselves on the titular samurai cartoon. Samurai Jack. Episodic like Avatar, The Last Airbender, Samurai Jack is about a samurai who is trying to kill Aku, a demon. Right before he can use his mystical sword to do that, Aku transports Jack into a future world. This world is where Aku has resigned for years. Jack has several adventures trying to return to his own time to prevent the dystopic future he is now living in. We have 4 seasons without a resolution to this overall plot. However, in the 5th and final season of the show, which was essentially a revival of the show, Jack defeated Aku but loses the woman he fell in love with. The show ends with a grieving Jack smiling as he sees the beautiful world he has saved. Hearing this plot makes me wonder, what made fans think this show was connected to one about 3 cheerful preteen girls fighting monsters in the modern world? Well, when we look into the theory, there's a lot of material for the fandom to work with. Let's take a look at that, shall we? Ties that bind, how Samurai Jack and Powerpuff Girls are connected to each other. Fan Theory Edition. Samurai Jack had a similar art style to Powerpuff Girls and was a Cartoon Network property as well. Additionally, the creators Craig McCracken of Powerpuff Girls and Tartakovsky of Samurai Jack fame both worked at Hanna-Barbera Studios. Now, many use this as a way to explain the similar art styles, especially the similarities between Prof. U and Jack, which seems almost familial, and so do Aku and Mojo Jojo, the main villains of the franchises. This theory has another strong element to it. Many fans have fond memories of the talking dog billboard from their childhood days watching Powerpuff Club save Townsville. Guess what? The same billboard exists in the dystopian future Jack winds up in, multiple times. Yes, this can be explained away by the other nods to popular cartoons that Tartakovsky had in his show, including a reference to Star Wars. It could be, as The Mandalorian calls it, a homage to other creators and artists he was inspired by. Or it could be an Easter egg that the two shows are alternate universes of each other. Tartakovsky denied that Samurai Jack was an alternate future to the Powerpuff Girls world, but this all changed when the Fire Nation attacked. Okay, no. In these shows, an attack by the Fire Nation was not what happened. What did happen was a comic release connecting these worlds. Powerpuff Girls Super Smash showed how these two shows and other Cartoon Network fan favorites like Dexter's Laboratory and Ben 10 are all connected. This connection covers almost every other fave of yours from the early Cartoon Network days. But before this comic was released, fans had multiple theories which the creators would dash and deny. One theory is that Jack going back in time created an alternate timeline, a better one, where his descendant was Professor Utonium, who gave life to the Powerpuff Girls, who spent the day fighting the remnants of Aku's monster. Another theory says that Aku sent Jack into the future to prevent him from having a family so that the Powerpuff Girls wouldn't exist and thwart his monster's attempts at world domination. Yet another theory says that Jack was sent further into the future, so far that he landed beyond the Powerpuff Girls timeline to when they were gone, probably destroyed by Aku or his descendant Mojo Jojo, the villain from Powerpuff Girls himself, and was now seeing a deserted Townsville. Or perhaps the girls died of natural causes and Townsville was abandoned for no sinister reason. Most of these theories sound horrific, right? This would lead one to think Powerpuff Girls Super Smash is a dark comic. Except that wouldn't align with the cheerful childlike vibe the comic and show have built. Perhaps to combat this, the creators connected the show in a much bigger manner, using Dexter as a catalyst for what seems to be the Cartoon Network's multiverse. Shall we see how? What happens when Dexter, the coolest girls on the block, and Prof U meet? Powerpuff Girls Super Smash Issue 1 is what happens. Yep, in this issue, Dexter's little sister ends up mutated and scaring Courage. We also see Prof U and Dexter talk about the place of the concepts of good and evil in the realm of science, and we get the Cartoon Network multiverse, which connects these two shows. There's even a Ben 10 name drop. Apparently, Ben and Dexy Boy are friends with each other and Samurai Jack. If what Dexter's saying when giving Prof U a tour of his lab is to be believed. Who knew? Okay, let's rewind a bit. How did Professor Utonium from the Powerpuff Girls end up in Dexter's lab? In an issue of the Powerpuff Girls comic, basically, Dexter has been tracking Aku's robots and sent an interdimensional email to invite Prof U to his lab in exchange for some of the sweet Chemical X. While showing them around, he shows them to a machine he has built called the Interdimensional Molecular Transporter, which shows the different universes in the multiverse, the Cartoon Network multiverse, including Ben 10 and Jack's world. Dexter is hoping to be eventually available to visit. More crossover for Cartoon Network, more happy fans, the bigger the money flow. In terms of Samurai Jack and Powerpuff Girls, what this machine and the subsequent ability to travel between the various Cartoon Network shows' worlds means is that even if the two multiverses aren't parallels or alternates, they are still connected by being part of the same multiverse. Sort of like Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield and Tom Holland's Spider-Man universe in the MCU or the whole of the Spider-Verse. Let's break it down further. There are several multiverse theories. String theory is one of them. Another one is that the multiverse is just a bunch of universes where different choices were made, leading to different results, and thus every universe is actually an alternate universe. Say, in one universe, Jack saves the world. In another, Aku wins. In the first, Jack's descendant creates the Powerpuff Girls, maybe. Or, maybe, in a world where Aku is ruling from the shadows and has created Monster Island, Prof U, who is descendant from the members of Jack's family, creates the girls. Jack ends up in a version of the world where the girls fail eventually. Or perhaps Jack gets sent forward in time to a time after the girls. He returns, defeats Aku, has a family, Prof U is born, and then the girls are created and live and die. And eventually, for whatever reason, Townsville gets abandoned. And then, the version of Jack from the beginning of Samurai Jack passed. Jack, if it were, appears in that timeline. Endless possibility. Fun fan fiction. More crossover events which might explain all this further. Big money for Cartoon Network and lots of entertainment for the fans. Essentially, without making any of the horrific theories canon, but by connecting the worlds, Cartoon Network has made the fan theories connecting Samurai Jack and the Powerpuff Girls possible. Of course, another possibility is that none of Jack's actions, but simply something else entirely, led to all the other shows set in a future time. So, what do we at Marvelous Comics think about these theories and the comic that brought them back into the limelight? Marvelous verdict. The crossover comic Powerpuff Girls Super Smash was a fun read with its various Easter eggs, especially the end featuring Courage. It starts off strong, like an episode of the Powerpuff Girls with them fighting another villain, and reminded us of our childhoods. It's pure and innocent and sweet, but that's what a comic with girls who are made from sugar spice and everything nice ought to be. While it introduces the multiverse in a sense, and even touches on concepts like good and evil, it still manages to be a fun story. story. It can't be a good standalone with that ending though, but most of the references made to the Powerpuff Girls universe are easy to infer thanks to the art. For example, when Professor Yu talks about having an ape companion in his lab, we see a little panel of Mojo Jojo holding the professor hostage. End of the day, it's a relaxing comic, good for letting your hair down after a grueling day at work. As for the theories, like most fanon and some headcanons, they aren't far-fetched, but are actually as a result of meticulous attention to detail and patterns in various shows and IPs. From seeing a common item like a recurring billboard with the same art, to similarities in the characters' looks, fans have put in hours of effort to make these connections. It requires a deep study of the subject matter and countless hours spent on forums discussing these ideas. It is a credit that Cartoon Network is giving fans hard work a nod by making these theories a more likely possibility with this crossover comic. And of course, we aren't saying no to more cameos and crossover events. And if you like our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.